Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Majin Starcraft, and today we're gonna bring you a Protoss versus Terran match between DuckloadRa, formerly known as WhiteRa, and Jimpo the Terran. As we all know, WhiteRa is a Protoss player, always been a Protoss player, and well, he's playing Protoss. The map is Lost Temple, strange. First two maps into the new year, Lost Temple and Lost Temple. I wonder if StarCraft 1 is looming over us like the spirit of Christmas past. Maybe. Well, let's get this show on the road, I suppose. As always, early game, we can't really see anything until the first buildings or the first scout comes up, and we have a supply depot and a pylon going up at about the same time. DuckloadRa is in the slight economical advantage because that's right, the probes don't need to stay and build, they can go right back on construction, and now we're getting that chrono boost up, so more probes are gonna be out for WhiteRa. I still call him WhiteRa, it's hard for me to call him DuckloadRa, that's a hard name to pronounce. And this SCV will probably lay down the barracks, and there we go, we have a barracks on 12, so it's a 12 racks standard build for the Terran Jimpo, no wall in, so he's not expecting any kind of early game aggression. There is that gateway, then there is that first scout for DuckloadRa or WhiteRa. What should we call him? Ra, Duck, White, artist formerly known as White? You be the choice. Call him whatever you want, he's still one of the best Protoss players out there, and he has an extractor on the way, an assimilator actually. Extractors are the Zerg version of the gas building, and we have also one gas for Jimpo. The barracks is almost done, and we'll see what this barracks brings up, probably a marine, and there is that one marine. This scout for Jimpo also went to this location to the bottom and found out nothing. Now DuckloadRa thinks that he's gonna find the Terran, but fail. No, the Terran is not here, so he needs to back out, run in here, and see what he's dealing with, what he can expect. Meanwhile, Jimpo is sadly also moving out of position, so his scouting time is also gonna be the maximum possible scouting time. We have a cybernetic score, kind of sneaky hidden right here behind the mineral line. I suppose that if the scout doesn't come into the base, that would be important. And now we have the marine chasing down the probe, but the probe is on full health, the shields are starting to regen, and the marine takes out the Zelnaga tower and keeps map control for the middle of the map for our Terran Jimpo. This is so strange because WhiteRa is one of my favorite players. There is a nice pylon. This pylon provides vision right here, so and he can also warp in units down, he can warp units up, and he also provides visions down here, so he knows if an army is amassing in this position, but that doesn't happen. Meanwhile, we have more chrono beasts being used. The production tab says that we finally have a stalker, and there's warp gate research on the way, so warp gates will come into play, but that second second gateway is not being put down. Bleh, warp gate, I'm really getting tongue twisted here. So we have a robotics facility and a stalker. Meanwhile, we have a factory down and a whoa. If there's a 1-1-1 build, or as Husky Starcraft would call it, the Destiny Cloudfist build, this would be very interesting because we have a tech lab on the factory, and we might see a switch between the factory and the starport, and we might see early banshees. We'll see if that actually is the decisive factor. Meanwhile, DuckloadRa does have a few zealots. There we go, another gateway finally being laid down, and a third one as well. Backup pylon, this is always good. Always have a backup pylon for your buildings, because let's say a drop comes in here and right here and you don't notice, and 3 or 4 marauders can just take out the pylon, and you are left without backup, and that is very, very big. So we have an observer, so he is going to try and see and scout what's gonna happen, and that means that banshees and cloaks will be completely useless. It is a very nice preemptive play by DuckloadRa. I gotta say, it's a little bit of luck because I don't think that he scouted this. Let's check it out. DuckloadRa, no, he hasn't scouted his opponent's base. Jimpo hasn't scouted his opponent's base. So both players are basically playing on luck, and I have to say, whoa, DuckloadRa is a little bit luckier in this sense that out of all the possible builds for Terran, he has managed to scout this in time. He knows that there's a Banshee on the way, so the Observer is wisely coming back. Cloak is almost done. Oh wait, Cloak was cancelled? Yes, apparently Cloak was cancelled. I didn't even notice that. Whoa. So Jimpo probably saw the Observer at one point, decided, hey, there's no point, and getting now a Raven. So this Banshee will probably use just to have a little bit of mind control, a little bit of harassment. I suppose he could even actually try and attempt to take out this pylon. This little probe running away. Very nice map awareness from WhiteRa, because he did not let this young probe die. Also, he's getting out an expansion, and there is also an Immortal out. I love these things. The evolution of the Dragoon just looks epic, feels epic to see these things on play, and they are epic. And there's that Banshee going to scout this expansion, knows that there's an expansion, knows that he has to expand as well, and there it is, the command center expanding. So we have Marines with Marines, Siege Tank is on the way, 2 tanks, Stim, and a Raven. Raven might be used for that PDD, for that point defense drone to you know, protect against missiles, but there are not many missiles out there, and there is that Banshee. There is no cloaks, so this Observer is just here to provide vision for the Stalkers to shoot, and the Banshee is forced to run away while this poor Observer is clunkily following along. Meanwhile, there is a Stalker here to control this turret, and this Zalnaga tower, and it's now Banshee versus Stalker, and the Banshee is out of position. The Banshee might fall because the Banshee is not that fast, but there we go, manages to get away with 30 HP. So let's check it out. I think these guys, yeah, these guys do 14 damage and 10 damage. 14 versus armored. I don't think Banshees actually count as armored. What are they? No, they do not count as armored. So yeah, tactical aircraft, they're not armored, so they don't take 14 damage. And there's a nice scan, and now this Raven is in a bad position, taking a little bit of unnecessary damage. And this is despite that it didn't get a kill or nothing, and this Stalker just managed to do some harass. The good part is that this Raven is now damaged, and unless it gets repaired in the battle, that will count a lot. So Jimpo is now using a different Terran tactic, which is basically trying to push out slowly with his tank, using his static defenses, slowly moving, slowly advancing across the map, securing his own expansion, orbital command up. We have a Mobius reactor on the way. Whoa, Mobius reactor on the way. So we're gonna see a lot of interesting plays here. What else? Let's check out the income for these two players. The WhiteRa is clearly in the advantage, and the harvester count. And here comes WhiteRa's army, DuckloadRa's army. Supply, he is in advantage, but we'll see if the army manages to fight these. He does have immortals, however, those siege tanks will chew through the zealots and the stalkers completely fast if the zealots don't have legs, and I didn't see any legs being researched. So no, the zealots don't have legs. The immortals are the strongest unit and are gonna take a lot of shells. But apparently DuckloadRa is playing for the macro game, playing wisely and smartly, and taking out these rocks and gonna secure a high yield expansion at one point. Meanwhile, we have High Templar, very nice indeed, with High Templar here, and Storm of course is on the way, gonna just massacre this bio army. The Marines have shields, we have ghosts, interesting, so feedback might the MP feedback, the other guys have feedback. The MP might come into play against the Templars, and against, of course, the also very powerful Protoss shield, taking out immediately the shields. And once the shields are taken out, every single unit is a lot more vulnerable. What I wanted to say earlier, but the guys were just messing around, is this pylon, despite being lonely here, I'm not gonna name it or call it Pylo, it's Pylo Jr. Anyway, let's get into the action. I'm going to talk about Pylo Jr. a little later. Here comes the army using some force fields to try and separate the army, and very nice separation. The following completely, he should actually... Sorry about that. He should turn around and try and fight this army, but now the army is united, and there is a PDD, but it's far out of the way. A drop for a High Templar, and there is a Storm. High Templar being taken out, dodging, no more High Templar, so now these Marines are still only one medevac here, a few tanks and a few Marauders, and sadly these Immortals are not that good against Marines because Marines don't do temp damage, so all these Marines are different sources of damage and just wailing on the poor Immortal, and it just simply doesn't matter. And now the siege tech comes into play with a nice scan here, taking out a few, taking out his army, taking out these pylons, and these pylons are basically here to die. And we have a drop. What is gonna drop here? What is inside there? An Immortal, and will the Immortal die? No, it doesn't die. Just so close there. If you would have lost that Immortal, it would have been very huge. And the Immortal's gonna drop, and the transport drops, but there we go, the Immortal dies. And now we have Zealots coming in here. Zealots are in a very nice position to fight against the siege tank because the siege tank cannot shoot that well, and the Marines are not that good against Zealots because they're just gonna get cut up. Now Zealot charge is on the way and is here, and Zealot charge will help these guys move in on the tank faster. But now the tank unsieges. We have 3 medevacs, and here comes the attack. This expansion might fall. He's gonna try and take out the Nexus, or maybe do some economical damage by taking some Harvesters. There's a photon cannon behind there, and more Zealots being warped in. That is a lot of warp gates, and more warp gates being pumped in. And this is just continuing onslaught by Jimpo on here, pressing the charge, trying to take out this expansion. And I think he might. All these guys are stinned. There is one guy there, and the expansion falls. Very nice indeed. And more Zealots being warped in. I don't know if this is such a smart move. I would have warped in maybe, so I would have, I'm not a high level player. Maybe some High Templars would have been better because they do have the Hydarian Amulet, and now the probes are getting in on the action, and the medevacs are trying to pick up something, and they do manage to get a lot of saves in there because this is an entirely ground army and they can't do anything. So let's look at the units lost tab, and there are a lot of Templars right there. The units lost tab, as you can see. Whoa, DuckloadRa behind in over 3,000 resources lost. There's a little bit of more combat here, but just some Marines and Marauders trying to fight. And whoa, we have a tank shell from somewhere, and there is a nice storm on the 2 storms and taking out a couple of Marines. And poor Marines getting taken out by the magic of the Protoss. But also, unbeknownst to our good Terran Jimpo, there is this Nexus being worked in, and here comes more pressure from Jimpo. So Jimpo is just pressing in, but sadly running into all those storms, and his army is completely decimated. And now trying to save the refurbish those High Templar and turning them into Archons. Archons are really good because they can take a beating as long as the shields are up. However, the Ghosts have died, and we have more Marines coming in, a few Ghost TMP, and there we go, the Zealots coming in to try to take out this army. Gonna load up everything, but however these Archons can shoot up, and they don't. They decide to come back, and they could have even used feedback on these medevacs, and now the medevacs are just coming back, bringing in more Marines. These Marines have 1 attack upgrade. Let's check out the production tab. More Marines, Marauders, more High Templar. But however, right now both players on 3 bases. Their main is almost mine. Oh, but I missed this. A very nice drop indeed by a few Zealots taking out a lot of Harvesters. God, that means a lot. There we go. We can see the Harvester differential dropping a little bit for Jimpo. He's still ahead, but I suppose a lot of them were taken out. And these guys can do a little bit of damage because meanwhile, another encounter here. We have an army that took out probably the transport. Did it take it out? No, the transport is here, and this is very nice positioning because he can just simply drop the Templar, storm, drop the Templar, storm, drop the Templar, storm. It is a great harass position, usually used by Terrans and their siege tech, but hey, Protoss can do it as well. If WhiteRa actually manages to spot this base, I don't think he has. As you can see, he does not see this base. If he does, that pylon I was talking about earlier, Pylo Jr., could be an epic